Hello, and thank you for watching the 7 common mistakes made in franchising and how to avoid them. My name is Craig Slavin, and I'm the founder of Franchise Architects, Franchise Central, and The Navigator. What we're about to share with you are mistakes that are common in franchising. And to be honest with you, some of them are very obvious, and some of them are very subtle, and you don't really realize that they're a mistake until after the fact. I've been involved in the franchising space for over 40 years now. I've sat in every possible seat around the conference table with the exception of one, and that is I've never been a franchise operator because I'm not the right profile. I'm not the kind of person that's going to be obedient to follow a franchising system because franchising is a rules-based system. I'm way too entrepreneurial. And I can share with you, in a lot of cases, franchisors that have sold franchises to very, very entrepreneurial people that become very problematic. So let's get right into the common mistakes that are made and how to avoid them. And the first one is the profile. I can't tell you the number of franchise companies where I ask them in advance, okay, who is it you're seeking to bring into your franchising system? Who is it that can execute your business model? And you know what? They don't know. It's generally more like, okay, they've got to have a certain amount of liquid capital, they have to have a net worth. But the fact of the matter is that you cannot bundle franchise buyers all into one category because everybody is wired differently. It's sort of like walking into the vegetable section of the grocery store. You don't have just potatoes. You've got onions, and you've got tomatoes, and you've got potatoes, and you've got celery, and you've got everything. And that's the way people are. And everybody is wired differently. Everybody has their own unique profile. It's not just criteria, and it's not money. Yes, it's important, but you've got to be able to pinpoint the psychometric profile of an individual so that you know how to go after them, you know how to recruit them, how to select them, how to service, train, support, and coach them. Now, it's important because when you bring a franchisee into the system, one of the mistakes that is made in franchising, and you'll see this a little later, is that the training and the guidance that's provided is very tactical, very procedural, very process-oriented. But you know what? When that franchisee closes the door of their business and they go home, and the interpersonal relationships that they have with their family or that they have with their employees or the community or their friends is very important. You need to know what makes them tick, what makes them happy, because you're recruiting and you're training the whole person. The second mistake is because you don't really understand who the profile is. Many franchisors don't. They end up in the communication and in the messaging of their franchise opportunity to the public. They use the wrong language, the wrong wording, the wrong kind of visuals, pictures, colors, and tonality. On the Franchise Navigator website, you'll see a testimonial from Great Clips for Hair, because when they brought us in to correct a problem and one of the mistakes that they were making back in 1999, their marketing material was misdirected. It was all about this is the right concept at the right time, at the right place, all the yada, 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 gotta have it now, instant gratification that a particular profile that we call the influencer has to have. But you know what? That wasn't their profile. That wasn't the person that they should be seeking. They wanted a multi-unit operator, and we ended up figuring out the profile, and then we corrected all of the messaging and developed new recruitment material. And I can point you to the article in the Wall Street Journal where the head of franchising at the time said the biggest mistake that they had was that their messaging was wrong, and it was because they didn't know the profile. Third mistake that's made in franchising is casting a wide net, meaning not knowing the profile, not knowing who they are, where they are, what they're going to read, how to talk to them, how to communicate with them. You end up casting a very wide net. You end up running ads in trade publications. You end up going to trade shows. You go as many places as you can in order to catch a lot of fish. But then you have to pluck the right fish from that net. And how do you really know which one is the right fish if you don't know the profile? The fourth mistake is forcing information at the buyer. You're pushing information at the candidate. It's all about how great your products are. It's all about how great your services are. It's all about how great your company is. But that doesn't necessarily resonate either with their needs or their learning process. It needs to be bottom up and not top down. The fifth mistake is that everything is process oriented. It's putting candidates through the same routine, the same recruitment process, regardless of who they are, regardless of how they learn. Because see, some people are auditory. They learn by what they hear. Some people are visuals. They learn by what they see. Some people are kinesthetic. They learn by how they feel. And if you take all of these people and you put them through the exact same process, the odds are you're going to alienate the very ones that you want. I've seen this so many times with some of these process-oriented pipelines, where the people that end up going all the way through the pipeline and the ones that are left standing are the ones that are highly obedient. The high performers need information fast. They need information on their own terms. And if you're not delivering it to them, they're gone. You only have their attention for a certain amount of time. And if you don't capture, if you don't hook them, they're gone. Forget it. And being subjective versus objective. So let's say you have a selection committee, and everybody in the selection committee puts their 2 cents in as to whether or not somebody's going to be a good franchisee and should be brought into their system. The problem with that is that it's not objective. If you have 6 people on the selection committee, you have 6 different people with 6 different models of the world and 6 different definitions of what constitutes a good franchisee. 7th mistake is that the training, the support, the field support, it's tactical, it's procedural, and it's a one-size-fits-all. You're forcing everybody through the same process. But you know what? Again, different people learn differently, and you have to have a training program and a support program that is adaptable to the needs of a particular individual. You'll only know those needs if you know their profile. So those are the 7 common mistakes made in franchising. Now let's talk about the solutions. So we know that not knowing the profile is a problem. What's the solution? Well, the solution is creating a profile for your ideal candidate. It's not difficult. It's not time-consuming, nor is it an expensive process. But remember, selling a franchise to the wrong profile is worse than not selling a franchise at all. We have currently over 170 different brands that we've worked with at The Navigator. Each one of these companies has their own unique profile. Not only do they have their own unique profile, the profile for a single unit operator is very different than the profile for a multi-unit operator. Now, our tool, The Navigator, is actually very unique and very different in the franchising space. It's actually 12 different assessments built in one. Now, we didn't just create The Navigator. We didn't just create this tool, although there are people out there that seem to create a new tool every 2 or 3 years. Well, we spent a lot of time researching what is it we wanted to measure with a franchisee, not personality. Personality tells you whether or not somebody in a cubicle is going to get along with everybody else on that floor in all of the other cubicles. The Navigator is a skills, values, and behavioral assessment that identifies the strengths and weaknesses of an individual in 9 critical categories: entrepreneurship, leadership, salesmanship, customer service, time management, accounting acumen, people development, and accounting, and how they operate and how they make decisions. I'll show you when we get done with the presentation examples of what the output and the deliverables are with the Navigator. So we've got over 170 different brands. We know a lot about people, and I'll tell you what, I never realized I was ever going to be in behavioral sciences until I realized that it's not about how good a product is. It's not about how good a service is. That's table stakes in today's economic environment. It's now about the strength of the people that are delivering that product or that service to the end user. Once we create this profile, all inbound candidates and even employees, we have the Business Navigator that works at the employee level. You'll know instantly if a candidate fits the profile, and you'll be able to see it visually, and you'll be able to read all about the strengths and weaknesses as to whether or not they are a good fit or not, whether or not they're a match or a mismatch to your business. The messaging. Well, each profile of the Navigator responds differently to different messages. Wording, the tonality of the recruitment material, the websites, your e-brochures, your email drip campaigns. Everything needs to be customized to your profile. Now, what we found is that a lot of companies, because they're not aware of the connection and the law of attraction, when they develop their websites, they're actually alienating the very profile they should be attracting. In fact, I just looked at a website yesterday that was just put live on the internet. And honestly, it looks nice, it's pretty, it's attractive, but the messaging is wrong. Each of the four profiles, once we know the dominant and the subordinate for your profile, needs to be communicated very differently. For instance, when we worked and were hired by Young, the strategy that they were using when they hired us was very top-down. Put these big brands to work for you. It was all about how good the company was, and it was all about how good the products were. But really, they weren't attracting the right profile. So we turned it into bottom up, and it became all about the people. Start with your drive. We were looking for a very high accomplisher. Add our brands and write your own success story. What a huge difference it made in their recruitment process. All of a sudden, they were bringing in like-minded people and people that not only got along with each other, but could execute the business model. Sears, when they migrated from the old catalog stores over to a new retail footprint, were attracting the wrong people. Even though they got up to 175 locations, it was all about the husband and wife team. But in reality, it was a sales and marketing program. And we needed to attract people that in our profiling system are called the influencers. So it's the accomplisher influencer, because the value system of the influencer is they pride themselves on their ability to influence somebody's mind, somebody's decision-making process, somebody's buying patterns. All of a sudden, sales went up. Unit sales went up to the tune of 38% in the first 18 months of using the Navigator. Now, just recently, we've received another testimonial from Sears that as they're learning this, and they've been using the Navigator since 1999, sales are still going up because they're getting even better at communicating with their operators. And again, I told you the story about Great Clips. They sold a ton of franchises to the wrong people. And we turned it around. We were looking for a multi-unit operator that in our profiling system is an accomplisher, associator, contributor combination, and the messaging became an executive business decision. In the case of Barkbusters, they sold a lot of franchises, but they were selling franchises at the dog behavioral training program. They were selling their franchises to people that really got it, that really understood what dog training was all about. But they weren't successful because they didn't know how to sell, they didn't know how to run the business. We turned it around into Top Dogs Wanted. Be the leader of the pack. So that now they started to attract sales and marketing people who in turn would hire and retain the dog behavioralist to do the dog training. Fishing. Generating leads is not an easy process. I've been generating leads now for 40 years. It's also not an inexpensive process. It's getting expensive, and it's getting even more expensive. Not knowing where to run your ads, who to send your emails to, where to have your PR articles published can exhaust your budget in a heartbeat and not generate the right lead. It all starts with the profiling. It all starts with who is your audience. Then we'll create a profile-based strategy for you so that you know who they are, where they are, what they read, what they watch, where they go, as well as many other behavioral patterns so that you're targeting the right profile. Forcing information. You know, I review sales information and sales material all the time. And the sales style of many franchise representatives is one that's very forceful and manipulative. And it says this, and I'm going to push this, and I'm going to push this, and I'm going to do this. Well, in reality, there's a lot of profiles out there that don't want to be manipulated. And what happens is that the exact same script is used to communicate with every single candidate, even though it doesn't resonate with every single candidate. Each candidate is different. They learn and process information differently. So it's imperative that a more accommodating style be incorporated based on an understanding of how each candidate profile learns and wants and assimilates information. Well, somebody came up with an idea a few years back to streamline the franchise recruitment process. And some vendors have developed this set process for handling leads. Well, remember, franchising is not a one-size-fits-all process. You can't take people and run them through the same process. It's just not logical. Each candidate's different. They all learn and process information differently, and these processes and the way in which you communicate with them has to be customized based on the profile of who a particular candidate is. It's that easy. Being subjective versus being objective. When franchise candidates are selected by consensus or committee, each person has their own interpretation of what is a good candidate. Ask 6 people, and you will get 6 different answers of what is a good candidate. This process is totally subjective and is not based on objectivity. One of our clients, for instance, has 7 people in the development department for recruitment. And I guarantee you, before they started using the Navigator 4 years ago, each one of them would say, this is a good candidate, this is a good candidate, this is a good candidate. Now the person in charge up at the top doesn't have to necessarily listen to these people. They're run through the Navigator, and the Navigator identifies if they are or are not a good candidate. So using the profiling system eliminates the guesswork and is totally objective. Tactical. Everything's tactical. I was just reviewing a website, and in the website it talked about you get initial training and then ongoing support. And we're going to come in every 30 to 45 days, and we're going to look at your operation. Well, that's very traditional and very tactical. It's all about the procedures and the methods of operating a business, and you have to have that. I read an article recently in one of the trade publications that talked about what occurs during a field support visit. And the person that was being interviewed clearly said between breakfast and lunch, they watch what's wrong. At lunch, they discuss what's wrong. And after lunch to closing, they fix what's wrong. Well, all of that is very procedural and very tactical. But think about it. The individuals, the managers, the general managers, the franchisees, they're all going to react to being forced and being policed very differently. You have to realize that each of the franchisees has unique skills, values, and behavior. And your communication, your training, and your support needs to be tailored and customized to the franchisees. So in summary, franchisor success is all about building your brand with the right people. So think about this. It's no longer top-down. It's no longer about how good your products or services are. That is table stakes in today's economic environment. It's now about how the strength of the people that are delivering the products and services to the end users. So the key to eliminating the 7 common mistakes made in franchising has nothing at all to do with franchising. It has everything to do with developing the right profile and building your growth strategy and support systems based on that profile. Thank you for watching. The company is Navigator Systems Solutions. We have Franchise Navigator, Sales Navigator, Business Navigator, Entrepreneur Business Owner Navigator. And under Franchise Central, we have our Connect Me, which is a matching process where we match want-to-be buyers. I call them wannapreneurs. We do their profile, and then we match them to our client's profile. So we match people to people, not people to businesses. We're based in Scottsdale, but we have clients all over the world. Give me a call, Craig Slavin, 847-465-3400. Look forward to talking to you and look forward to building your company with the right people.